Now to the international scene. At least 16 people have been killed and over 400 injured across Kenya after a nationwide demonstration turned violent. What began as a peaceful memorial march to honor the more than 60 people killed during anti-tax protests in 2024 quickly spiraled out of control yesterday. Thousands of mainly young Gen Z Kenyans took to the streets to remember victims of last year's deadly police crackdown when demonstrators stormed parliament as lawmakers passed a controversial finance bill. Now, the tax hikes were eventually dropped by President William Ruto, but the anger clearly hasn't gone away, and this year's protests were reignited after a recent death of a young blogger and teacher, Albert Ojwang, who reportedly died in police custody after publishing a post critical of an officer. For many Kenyans, this tragedy that happened with this man felt like proof that little had changed in their country. Yesterday, the police in Kenya responded with tear gas, rubber bullets, and live ammunition, particularly in Nairobi and other major cities. And several protesters were confirmed to have died from gunshot wounds, while emergency services are saying that they treated hundreds of injuries ranging from stampede wounds to respiratory distress. Human rights groups are now condemning the government's handling of the situation, and they're accusing the government of media censorship, excessive force, and ignoring calls for accountability. Now, why this is interesting is that this is being touted as a Gen Z protest. They're mobilizing on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. They're using social media to protest because, bear in mind, the Kenyan government has censored these protests. They're not to be broadcast on national TV. But what I find interesting about protesting in this current age is I want to see if governments are going to engage the youth where they are at. How do we engage the younger generation? Because if you look at it, this is actually political participation. How does the government engage with us? This is what will tell us about the current political sphere. Let's take a look at social media. Omega says, look at that crowd. No tribe, no religion, just one voice. Before I hand over to my team, I'm hopeful that you guys one day will chime in with the hashtag TrendingNowTVC on any social media platform of your choice. I promise that we are listening. Team, which of these stories take your fancy? Which of these stories make you think?
Both of them involve the police, so let me start with the Kenyan police first. It's as if it's an African problem. We have an issue dealing with demonstrations by citizens. For whatever reason, most of our peaceful demonstrations, not just in Nigeria, in Africa as a whole, ends up turning violent, maybe because of the way it is handled by security agencies and so on. You shoot rubber bullets and you're also shooting live bullets on the side. There are 17 people dead, over 400 injured. That's not something anybody should think of. And yes, for the the jogging policemen, man, they have two reasons not to have done that. If it was if they were acting a part in the movie, we would have known. It would have been very clear. And obviously they are not. And I also want to ask, why should this happen at all? And why should the police public relations officer come and say, one thing is not clear, another is not clear? We have their pictures. Pick them up and ask the questions.
All right, I'll pick it up from there. For a movie scene, you cannot hire an active policeman to come and play those scenes. You just, put your team together to act that out. And that's obviously not what is happening there. If you need the policeman as an escort, it's easy to do. There are procedures you can go through and then you get them. You pay the monies necessary and that's done. People know that that information is all out there. So I guess that they need to look into their processes. You need an escort, how to go about it, and what you need them for. That has to be broken down and dealt with so that we'll not be getting these kinds of pictures on social media and you having to come to defend it. And then for the matter of what is going on in Kenya, it reminds me of the 2020 protests that we had here in Nigeria. Although that was also made in controversy, young persons need to know how to engage government. They need to trust people. That will make it seamless and understand how to work with government. Until they come to understand how to negotiate with government, we'll continue to see these kinds of things.
Right. The two matters. The issue of our Nigerian police jogging. Only God knows what was magnetizing, you know, on the actress, you know, that made the police forgot that they forget rather that they had a gun, and then they had to jog. But normally it's routine for the Nigerian police to jog and all of that. So probably it was coincidental. Let's just find an excuse for them, you know, kind of. But let the police deal with the matter. And then the other one, which has to do with the protest in Kenya. Yeah, there was this white bread protest, you know, in Kenya, but it's not exclusive to Africa, because when you look at it, look at what is happening what had happened in Venezuela, France. Yeah, I'm going to wrap up now. And then even in America recently, that Trump had to deploy the National Guard, you know, under his dictatorship.
This is where we have to wrap
rather than
things
presidency.
All right, we have to wrap things